everybody is here for the domestic water booster system replacement, right? Good evening and welcome to the board meeting for the Village of Skokie. It's Monday, January the 7th, 2019. This evening we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Village Clerk Pramod Shah.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Roberts.
Here.
Trustee Sutker.
Here.
Trustee Ulrich.
Here.
Trustee Bromberg.
Here.
Trustee Klein.
Here.
Trustee Gray Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Here. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. A motion to approve the consent agenda would be in order. Trustee Roberts, seconded by Trustee Ulrich. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to have removed? Did I hear somebody had something they wanted removed from the consent agenda? That's somebody who wants to hear the water booster report. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts.
Aye.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich.
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. This evening, we have the pleasure of a first, I believe, in the history of the village, at least in the short term. First time we have had 5 lieutenant promotions in the history of the Skokie Fire Department. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the chairman of the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, Will Evans. Will? Will?
He's here.
I thought
Somewhere else.
the man knows how to make an entrance. Little anticipation. Well, the chairman of the Plan Commission just arrived. That's at the end of the meeting.
He may be in the meeting upstairs, so we're just going to double check.
Okay. Talk amongst yourselves.
You don't mean that to me.
No. You're the exception.
We'll free this up for Will. We'll free up the space for Will.
And I would like to introduce Chief Hoflick, who is with us this evening as well. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Van Dusen, trustees, Fire Chief Hoflick, and all of us who are here on this very special evening. I want to especially acknowledge the family and friends of tonight's inductees. Tonight, we are here for the swearing in of our 5 newest Village of Skokie lieutenants. As we must never forget that the men and women who serve as the first responders deserve our admiration. They are often the first on the scene of a tragedy and provide security and comfort to those who are suffering. We invest our firefighters with authority to promote and keep the peace. They deserve our support and gratitude as they do their jobs. It is now my great honor to have this opportunity to begin the swearing-in ceremonies. Tim Norton. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Tim Norton,
I, Tim Norton,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinance of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Fire Lieutenant to the best of my ability.
of a Fire Lieutenant to the best of my abilities.
Thank you, sir.
And Lieutenant, would you introduce your family and friends who are with you this evening?
I will, thank you, Mayor. I have with me my wife, Christina, and my 3 daughters who are scattered about the room. Emma's my oldest, Claire's my middle, and then Aaron's the youngest. I also have my parents with me, my father, Timothy Norton, my stepmother, Lori Norton, and my mom, Janie Noreen. I also have my brother, CJ, my sister, Megan, and her kid, her daughter, excuse me. She doesn't have all of them with her, so just the one. Also, my father-in-law, Thomas Marabanian, is here as well.
Welcome.
Nicholas? If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Nicholas Eaglin, do solemnly swear that I would uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
I, Nicholas Eaglin, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinance of the Village of Skokie,
ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a Fire Lieutenant to the best of my ability.
of a Fire Lieutenant to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Nicholas. And it becomes official.
And Lieutenant, would you introduce your family and friends?
Sure. Got my wife Bridget, sitting on her lap is Eddie, my young guy. Got Nora next to her there. Got my guy Mickey. And next to him we got my daughter Shannon. So then there's a plethora of others. Got my dad in here from Arizona. Kurt Harms came for me, I'm sure. Got my brother Jim, Jake. Father-in-law Joel just said he wanted to make sure I put him out. And a plethora of others. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Michael? So if you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michael Yan, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
I, Michael Yan, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
State of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinance of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Lieutenant, guess what? Would you introduce your family and friends?
Thank you. Got my father, Daniel, my mom, Nancy, my wife, Tiffany, and my daughter, Emmy, my father-in-law, Jim, and my mother-in-law, Kathy.
Welcome.
David?
And as David is walking up, I would like to also introduce our former fire chief, Walters, who is with us. Thank you. Just saw you. Welcome.
Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, David Norris, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
I, David Norris, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Illinois,
the state of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
and the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Police and Fire Commission,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Thank you, Mayor. My wife, Dawn, I hear my three kids, Paul, Summer, and Lacey, and my sister-in-law, Kim, and her son, Paul.
Welcome. It's great to have you.
Michael Greenwood. Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Michael Greenwood, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
I, Michael Greenwood, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
state of Illinois,
State of Illinois,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the Village of Skokie,
and the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the rules and regulations of the Fire Department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commission,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
of a fire lieutenant to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Thank you, Mayor. With me today, I have my father and mother, Jerry and Kathy, my lovely wife, Adina, my three sons, Aiden, Caleb, and Owen, my sister-in-law, Miha, and my two beautiful nieces, Karis and Hannah.
Well, I know that the family and friends are all very proud of our new lieutenants this evening, but I just want to share a little bit with you, because the men and women in the force are well aware of this. The next item on our agenda, as it just so happens, is our Director of Marketing and Communications, Ann Tennis, is going to share with us the citizen survey results for 2018. Every 3 years or so, we hire a firm that is from Boulder, Colorado, specializing in reviewing different municipalities across the country, surveying the residents as to their appreciation for their city or village services. It's very proud for us to say that the Skokie Fire Department received a 97% rating. 90. That's remarkable. You can brag with PD, by the way. They're just a point or two behind you, so no comment. They give out the tickets, no comment. But it really confirms what all of the professional organizations across the country say. We're ISO #1. We have the elite accreditation across the country. So when we, as elected officials, brag, as we're wont to do every 4 years, and we say we've got the best police and fire departments, the first responders in the country, it's backed up, and our residents agree with that. It's an unprejudiced, unbiased survey. It's as good as they get. So we want to congratulate our new lieutenant, but we also want to take the opportunity to thank the entire force, the past, the present. Some of you are retirees, and we thank you for your service. We thank everybody who is on the service now, and we look forward to future promotions and new hires. Our Board of Fire and Police Commissioners does an outstanding job. Will is the new chairman. His predecessor was with us, I believe it was 51 years. A remarkable individual, as is Will and the entire board. So it's a great group, and the promotions this evening, I think, make that evident. So thank you for everything you do. Congratulations to our new lieutenant, and congratulations to the family and their friends. I know you all want to stick around for the water booster, but why don't we take a short break so we can congratulate our new promotions, and then we'll reassemble and we will have Ann's report. So we'll take a short break. Thank you.
tired a little bit.
I like it.
What was that, huh?
It's not a surprise.
They were both there.
The meeting will resume. Where did everybody go?
Ann cleared the room.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the 2018 Citizen Survey results by Ann Tennis, our Director of Marketing and Communications. Ann?
Good evening. I'm excited to be here once again to provide an overview of the results of the 2018 National Citizen Survey. The village has conducted the National Citizen Survey every 3 years since 2003, and it's always exciting to provide feedback on what residents think about village programs and services and their aspirations and life in the community and their aspirations for the community as well. The questions on the survey haven't changed a whole lot since 2003. There are some custom sections that we always change up. For example, I remember in 2003 and 2006, the big issue was e-commerce. And now that that's in our rearview mirror and going strong here, you know, we're on to other things. I have about 15 slides. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Snooze that. And then I will give just a very brief overview, and then I'm glad to answer any questions you have. Bear with me, I've got a couple different glasses changed. It's hell getting old. So this year's last year's National Citizen Survey was conducted in the summer, again by the National Research Center in Boulder, Colorado. The surveys this time were mailed to 1,600 randomly selected single and multifamily homes. This base sample size has steadily increased, especially over the last 3 surveys. So from 2003 to 2012, the base sample size was 1,200. In 2015, the National Research Center increased that base sample size to 1,400. And this year it was 1,600. And the reason correlates actually to the second bullet point here. And you'll see we had a 23% response rate, which is low for us. The last, our average has been high 20s, low 30s. I think one time, maybe it was 2006, we even hit close to 40%. But the National Research Center assured us that this 23% response rate is consistent with what they're seeing nationally, that there is a trend for decreased written survey participation. We promoted the survey, both the written survey, to give residents who might be selected a heads up that, you know, not to be surprised if they received some information about it. But then also, all of our promotions included information about the online version that was offered for the very first time this year. But we promoted it extensively, as we always have. In New Skokie, this time Skokie e-News, we sent it out a couple of times, and I think there was once where that was the only piece of information in e-News. And those of you who see e-News, I'm sure you all look at it, know that we rarely do that. We rarely focus on one item, by itself, but we did. And of course, on the website, we had over 1,600 responses online, which the National Research Center staff told us is one of the highest of any municipality or unit of government that they work with. I should also add that in addition to the online response option, there was for anyone who wanted to opt in. Initially, with the select data set, when people received the written survey, they had the option of completing the written survey or going online to complete it. Those residents had a special code so that the National Research Center would know people who were opting in online as part of the select data set, and then people who opted in later on. And what they did was, the initial surveys were mailed towards the end of July, and they allowed a 4-week period for people to respond either in writing or with the special codes online. Once that time period was completed, we were given the green light to go ahead and post it online. And we kept it online for, I think it was about 2.5 weeks. Here's an overview of who responded. I have a few slides that'll give you a snapshot of who decided to respond. And this data, the rest of the data, unless I specifically mention it, all pertains to the select data set, so the written responses and then those who responded online as part of the select data set. 56% of the respondents were female, 44% were male. Again, that's consistent. Women do respond more often than men. Age, you can see there's quite a colorful pie chart here, but when you look at it, the bulk of the respondents were over age 45. 45 to 74 was the bulk of the respondents. Relative to income, there's again a range, but when you look at these figures, you'll see that the vast majority of those who responded have incomes of ranging between $25,000 and $99,999. So those were the incomes that were reported for a majority of people who responded. Here's some highlights from the response, or from the survey responses, and what I want to say maybe just as an overview before I get into some of the specifics on the next few slides. When we received this data, I went into John's office and said, I have never, since 2003, I have never seen responses as positive. The responses this time were by and large extremely favorable across the board, extremely positive across the board. You'll see in a few slides, nearly 80% of the ratings went up, were above what they had been in 2015. So it was very exciting to look through the data. There are a couple of areas that we need to look at, and I'll of course provide some information on that as well. But what I did, and in all these you'll see going forward, I focused on how residents rated various indicators with excellent good ratings. Life in Skokie, 89% excellent good. Life in their individual neighborhood, 83%. Skokie as a place to raise children, 85%. As a place to work, 74%. Place to visit, 64%. Place to retire, 66%. And overall quality of life in the community, 85%. And what I think is noteworthy is that indicator about quality of life is increased as well. Oops. So the written data summary again, as I said, a total of 77% of our 2018 ratings increased from 2015. And this is just a snapshot. I pulled out about 5 of them that I thought were noteworthy, and I'm going to give you a little more detail on one of them as well. Street lighting, 82% excellent good, a 13% increase over 2015. Crime prevention, 80% excellent good, 12% increase. Animal control came in with a 9% increase. Street repair, an 11% increase. And overall image, 79% excellent good for a 9% increase. And I want to go back to street repair, because that one in particular, that's one of the first ones I look at. And when I get the data, I'll be honest, first thing I do is I look at safety, and I look at quality of life, and then of course I have to read all the verbatim ones. Those are always very, very interesting to read and insightful. One of the first ones I look at is street repair, because historically that had been a trouble spot for us. Those of you who have watched these surveys historically know that in 2003, 2006, 2009, our ratings for street repair were not great. And this indicator really excited me when I saw the fact that residents have taken note that the village board, you responded and have allocated more resources into street repairs. And it's really gratifying, I'm sure, to me, and I'm sure to you, to see this type of a double-digit increase in that, which is really affirming. So areas of note, there are 2 of them that I want to provide some detail on. First of all, only 18% of residents indicate that they stock emergency supplies. And both of these, as I'll just kind of skip to the last bullet point before I go back, but both of these trended downward since 2015 and are the only 2 things we have that are below national benchmarks. Everything else is above or way above, and I'll give you some more detail on that in a minute. But these were both below. So as far as the emergency supplies, by contrast, in 2015, 26% of respondents reported stocking supplies for emergencies. Looking at the data a little deeper for this go-around, the demographic subgroup analysis showed that residents age 18 to 34 were less likely to have stocked emergency supplies. And interestingly, Looking at the geographic breakdown by our zip codes, area code 60203 respondents were less likely to stock emergency supplies. So, we've long known that we need to continue the drumbeat of education on this issue, and it's really helpful to have the precise information that we do from both the geographic and demographic subgroup analyses, so that we can really target our education. The next area has to do with what the survey firm calls housing cost stress. There was a higher than average percentage of respondents who experience housing cost stress. This is defined as households spending more than 30% of their entire income on housing costs. The way the National Research Center determines this, excuse me, is they look at two factors in the demographics section of the survey. Question D9, which asks for the gross amount of monthly housing costs, and that includes mortgage, taxes, homeowners association fees, if any. And then they compare that and do an analysis with question D12 that asks for the total annual household income before taxes. So in 2018, 53% of residents were not under housing cost stress by that indicator. Comparatively, in 2015, 61% were not, and in 2012, 58% were not. So that 2012 factor was a little, in 2009, it was a little closer to the 2018 figure at 54%. So the percentage of residents not under housing cost stress is below national benchmarks. We have begun internal discussions about this. What does this mean? And what is this a factor of? And there are a number of different factors that we've discussed. Comparable housing costs, the dynamic and changing housing market. Property taxes is a big one. If you look through the verbatim comments in both sections, for both the online opt-ins and the select data set, there are lots of comments about property taxes. We're very fortunate to have a variety of housing and new housing coming online that is going to change this dynamic even more. Compared to our neighboring communities, and this is important, I think, Skokie is in the middle relative to housing cost stress. Some of our neighbors have higher incidence of housing cost stress, some have lower. Skokie's in the middle, so we're not at the top, we're not at the bottom. We also believe, as a group, well, one of the things that we really think is that Skokie's excellent services, our great schools, and the fact that Skokie is known as being such a welcoming community, that those factors combine to incentivize people to stretch to live here. They want to live here because of all these great factors. So we will continue our discussions on this, and we won't continue these discussions in a vacuum. John and I have talked about the importance of continuing these discussions with our peer agencies within the community. So again, those were the two, and really the only two areas of note in the entire survey data that came back. So, back to satisfaction with village services. Again, looking at excellent good. Fire department, 94%. Garbage collection services, 92%. Overall quality of village services, 90%. Police department services, 88%, as the mayor said, just slightly below their fire department cousins. And animal control came in at an impressive 83% as well. I'd like to stop for a moment on the 90% excellent good rating for the quality of village services. I think this is noteworthy on a couple of fronts. The rating is higher than national benchmarks, which is exciting and gratifying. Of 420 communities across the country that ask this question, Skokie ranks 14th, which I think is just terrific. The 90% rating is also the highest in our history of asking this question. This rating was 84% in 2015, and I averaged that rating from 2003 through 2012, and the average rating was about 87%. So again, we rank 14th out of 420 communities across the country, and it's the highest rating we've ever had. So again, I think it's noteworthy. I'm going to now talk about safety. And this indicator is not excellent good. It's residents are asked, the metric includes at the top end of the scale, do you feel very safe in your community in these various areas, or somewhat safe, or not safe, or somewhat not safe? Again, I chose to focus on the residents who said they feel very or somewhat safe. In downtown Skokie, 93% said they felt very to somewhat safe, and in their own neighborhoods, 91% said they felt very to somewhat safe. And I'm pleased to tell you that these ratings are consistent with 2015. This next area I chose to focus on because we just knocked it out of the park, which I think is exciting. These have to do with mobility and transportation in the community. And I have a few notes after I'll run through these numbers. Again, now I'm back to an excellent good indicator here. Overall ease of travel throughout the community, 88%. Travel by car, 86%. Ease of walking in the community, 81%. Public parking, 81%. Travel by bicycle, 77%. Paths and walking trail, 77%. And traffic flow, 75%. All of these ratings are above national benchmarks. The one I want to pull out is public parking. It is much higher than national benchmarks. Of 216 communities across the country that ask this question, Skokie ranks 9th, which again is an impressive metric for us. How are residents satisfied with community life? And again, this is very to somewhat likely is the rating scale. There are two questions that are asked. The first one is, would you recommend living in Skokie to someone else? 86% said they would be very to somewhat likely to make that recommendation. The second question is, will you remain in Skokie for the next 5 years? 88% said they were very to somewhat likely to remain in the community. The recommendation to live in Skokie, that rating has stayed steady since 2012, with the remain in Skokie over the next 5 years increasing 2% from 2015 when it was given an 86, and a full 6% over 2012 when it was lower than that. I'll switch now and talk about ratings for village employees. Again, now we're back to an excellent good rating. Courtesy of village employees, 87% excellent good. Responsiveness of village employees, 83% excellent good. And knowledge of village employees, 80% excellent good. These are consistent with ratings in the past, and my colleagues and I are all very proud of this. John has begun, we've begun talking about how to communicate the gratitude over employees providing this consistent customer service day in and day out. So again, ratings we're all happy about. I believe this is the last slide before we get to questions. But I wanted to also pull out the local government ratings on an excellent good scale, and I have some notes after I run through the numbers. So relative to local government, Skokie government, treating all residents fairly, 77% excellent good. Being honest, 75%. Generally acting in the best interest of the community, 71%. 71% also for the overall direction that Skokie is taking. 70% for overall confidence in Skokie government. 67% for the job Skokie government does welcoming citizen involvement. And 65%, and I apologize that this is cut off a bit at the end, there was a lot to try to cram on this slide, but it's the value of services for taxes paid to the village of Skokie. All of these ratings were higher than national benchmarks, all of them. And if you're interested, all of this, the data on this can be found on page 23 of the technical appendices. But Skokie, for the question about treating all residents fairly, of 250 communities that asked that question, Skokie ranked 7th. And for the question about welcoming citizen involvement, of 315 communities surveyed, Skokie again ranked 7th. So again, impressive when we're looked at through the lens of peer communities across the country. So as you know, there's a lot of data here. Every time I look at it, I learn something more. We're committed to, again, continuing to analyze the data and changing programs where they need to be changed, increasing education, and shifting the focus of our education and outreach where appropriate. And I appreciate your attention, and I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Trustee Roberts.
Thank you, Ann, for giving us a good slice there. It's a little intimidating when you look at the whole book, so I appreciate you breaking it open for us. I was curious about the people that chose to answer online after the survey closed. Did they give you separate information on that, and was it radically different than the citizens who were selected?
I am so excited you asked this question because as I stood in my office today thinking, okay, what are they going to ask? I thought, I'm going to spend some time and drill down, and I have just a snapshot. Bear with me, because it was fun to go through the data and see where the differences lied. Overall, those who opted in online were very positive, more positive even than those who were part of the select data set. So with just a few random scattered exceptions, they tended to rate services and programs more highly. And let me give you some examples. So relative to their neighborhood as a place to live, giving it an excellent good rating, they're just their neighborhood. Written were 39% excellent good, opt-in 50% excellent good. Overall quality of life being excellent. I'm sorry, this is just excellent, not excellent good, forgive me. 32% of the written data set gave it an excellent rating, overall quality of life. 41% excellent for the opt-in set. Another one, this is kind of a random one. I pulled out ones that had, I thought, significant spreads in the ratings. This next one has to do with the availability of affordable and quality childcare. 22% of the written set gave it an excellent rating. 30% of the opt-in gave that an excellent rating. Opportunities to volunteer. Those who opted in the written survey or who were part of the select data set rated it excellent, 25%. Opt-in, 34%. Openness and acceptance to people from different backgrounds. Written survey, 42% excellent. Opt-in, 51% excellent. Here was one of the anomalies where there was a reverse discrepancy. Ease of travel by bicycle. Written, 33% excellent. Opt-in, 22% excellent. I won't read you all of these, but again, the demographics were a bit different. For example, lived in Skokie for more than 20 years. Written data set, 44%. Opt-in, 53%. Housing, live in single-family home. Written, 55%. Opt-in, 84%. That's big. Living in a building with 2 or more units. Written, 42%. Opt-in, 16%. Those who responded online, counterintuitively, were older. Are you or any household member 65 or older? Written, 37%. Opt-in, 45%, which surprised me. Income, opt-in, optics were higher for the opt-in. And then zip codes, just the geography who responded. Written, 60076. Written, 51%. Opt-in, 56%. 60077. Written, 44%. Opt-in, 34%. Finally, 60203. Written, 5%. Opt-in, 10%. So, but again, they were even more positive than those who responded with the written data set.
Trustee Zucker.
And you said the opt-in was only up for 2.5 weeks. How did you pick how long it would be up?
That was what the National Research Center requested, because at some point they needed to stop the data collection and start the analysis. And we were on a time frame. John and I really pressed them to have the initial report by the beginning of October. So we kind of back-timed it, and they needed 4 weeks for the select data set, and then it was I think we posted it, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but as I recall, we posted it the Friday, looking at John, because we talked about this, it was the Friday before the Friday of the Backlot Bash was the day we posted it, and we took it down on, I think it was a Monday, September 10th, at the end of that day.
Do they recommend a certain amount of time that you leave it up for an opt-in?
I don't know. I mean, when you say, is there a minimum, I don't know quite how to answer that question, and I'm glad to find out. I will tell you, they did not voice to me any concern that we were too short or too long. And as I said on the slide, we were among the top in terms of local units of government in terms of responses. They were within, I think I checked in with them about a week in just to see how we were doing, and we were already at 1,000 responses, and we picked up almost 700 more. And we did publicize it extensively.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And echoing what Randy said, thank you so much for breaking this down more. When I
Sure.
got that thing, I went through it, but there's no way I could spit back all the stuff that you just said. It's really, really helpful. And I'm really surprised with the people that opted in. I really anticipated people opting in would be rating everything lower. If people like to complain, so it's really fascinating that it was higher, and also that the age was higher, too.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful.
As I dug into it today, that I was surprised as well. It is, if I may, it is a lot of material. And if I could encourage you to, I'll tell you where sort of my go-tos are. I really like looking at the dashboard summary. I think that's really good. It gives a real quick comparison of percent positive, whether we're even with 2015, our trend, and then how we rank nationally. So that is really interesting to me. I also pay a lot of attention to trends over time, and especially now because the village has chosen to invest in this initiative since 2003. That data is very important, looking at those trends over time.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think the one takeaway is the pressure is now on. How do you repeat those? Those are remarkable.
They really are.
They really are.
This was great.
And I think the swearings in tonight of our fire lieutenants kind of symbolize just exactly what it is that the people in the village appreciate. So, Ann, thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a great
My
presentation.
pleasure. Bear with me while I kind of shift things over back to the document camera. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the domestic water booster. Our village manager, John Lockerbie. John?
Thank you very much, Mayor Van Duzen and the Village Board. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, items A and B on my report, including the domestic water booster that has been very popular this evening, was approved under tonight's consent agenda, and that completes my report.
Thank you. Next item is report of our Corporation Counsel, Michael Lorge.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Good evening, everyone. Items A, B, C, and D are ordinances which were on the consent agenda at the beginning of this evening's meeting and were adopted at that time. Item E is a resolution. Item E is a resolution on my report for first reading and board action tonight. This resolution will grant a utility easement to Commonwealth Edison Company and other utilities in order to locate a new utility pole and equipment on the Skokie Valley Trail bike path. A small 10-foot by 3-foot utility easement will be located approximately 225 feet east of Niles Center Road in order to provide services to a new townhouse development located at 4900 Madison Street. Electrical service from the new pole will be placed underground to the development. Mayor, I request board action on this resolution this evening.
Thank you. Motion on item E is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Bromberg. Are there any comments or questions? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts.
Aye.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich.
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye. Motion passes.
Item F is an ordinance on agenda tonight for first reading. This ordinance will approve a plat of dedication for a portion of the property measuring 2 feet by 50 feet. This dedicated property will be used to widen the public alley, which is adjacent to 5010 Warren Street, to improve accessibility to that site. This dedication was made to the village of Skokie without any financial compensation being paid for the land. This ordinance will be back on the agenda on January 22nd for second reading and adoption at that time.
Are there any comments or questions on item F?
Then, Mayor, this would conclude my report.
Thank you. The concluding report this evening is of our Plan Commission, Chairman Paul Luke with Peter Pyer.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My first case is case 2018-44P, a special use permit request at 7720 Austin Avenue. At the December 6th meeting of the Plan Commission, we reviewed the request of Doru Vinicon for a special use permit for outdoor storage in conjunction with the existing Mulroy excavation and demolition heavy construction business at 7720 Austin Avenue. This is in an M3 industry zoning district, and also they're looking for relief from Chapter 118, 172 to provide a 5-foot front yard setback rather than the required 25 feet minimum, and any additional relief discovered during the review of this case. The petitioner has been operating the business and outdoor storage without an occupancy or special use permit at the subject site for over a year and has been cited by the village for doing so. The outdoor storage area currently contains business trucks, heavy construction equipment, including excavators, trailers, front-end loaders, etc., and construction materials, and is surrounded by a temporary construction fence. The 2 existing buildings at the subject site contain bathrooms and storage for machinery, tools, and construction materials. No public water or sewer services are currently provided at this property. Subsequent to the filing of the case, staff worked with the petitioner to revise the site plan in order to bring into compliance with the parking requirements for the use, increase height of the fence to meet village code regulations, and relocate a proposed fence out of an existing easement for ingress and egress that runs along the north side of the property. Staff also requested that the eastern 8-foot of the property be dedicated in order to bring Austin Avenue right-of-way into compliance with Section 94-6.2 of the Village Code, which requires a minimum right-of-way width of 33 feet. The dedication would needed to be made upon either the extension of Austin Avenue north to Oakton Avenue, or upon the installation of water and sewage infrastructure within the right-of-way or the proposed dedication. The Plan Commission concurs with the staff's recommendation to grant the special use permit.
A motion is in order on the special use permit recommendation for 7720 Austin Avenue, Plan Commission case 2018-44P. Trustee Roberts, seconded by Trustee Sutker. Are there any comments or questions? Trustee Roberts.
Has I was reading about the testing, they use well water there in a septic system, is that?
Yes, that was existing.
Are there many properties, Peter, that are still like this, that aren't part of the village water and sewer system, or?
No, the village has had an ordinance for many years now that all businesses and properties must hook up to village water and sewer. So on this map here, you can see these buildings here and this building here are the only remaining buildings in the whole village that are not connected to water.
Okay.
They also are not connected to sewer. They both have septic tanks. The only other location that is on septic tank is Memorial Park Cemetery.
And they're subject to testing by Illinois EPA. Do we know the outcome of that testing, or whether they're licensed or certified by Illinois EPA?
It's a licensed lab that must do the testing, and then we give a copy to our health department, and they have the standards for public wells. And so far, the tests have come back without any problems.
Thank you.
Trustee Klein.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I remember we having a conversation about this area where they were going to hook into the sewer and the water. Is there another tenant there who had stated that they were going to do that?
There was a previous plan commission case, and I believe the water supply that's closest to them is actually privately owned, so they couldn't hook up to it.
Oh, that was not a condition of any
No, I think
special
Peter can
use?
elaborate on why that came about.
Yes, to the north of the property if we look up here where these three buildings are, is the property line up here. Even though this M3 building up here is in Skokie, it's the foundry, they actually get their water from Morton Grove, as does Niles West. And but the water that they get is on a private water main that stops up north by Oakton Street, and so they are unwilling to allow any connection to their water main. The other location for connection to the system, in the village system, is way down here on Austin Avenue. They would have to build a private water main all the way to their property, and which is quite expensive. We estimated to meet their water needs it would be over $300,000. There's also a need to put in a sewer. There is no sewer in that area. There's a huge drop sewer, maybe 50 or feet more down below, and again that would be costly, and we're not even sure that that we would be able to connect into an MWRD sewer that's of that size.
So their septic system is suffice?
At this point it is. If we get test results back that the septic systems are not working properly, or that the water system is not working properly, then they will have to connect to the village system. It'll be an expense that those property owners will have to bear by themselves, because there's no greater community value here. It's a private benefit to them.
Mm-hmm.
So using public funds would not be correct here. There could be a special assessment or other way of going about this, but actually those property owners should be the ones paying for it. Fortunately, this is a construction company, so if anybody could do it at a reasonable price, those tenants up there would. And also the special trade contractor up here is a cement guy, so I mean, if they got together and they were forced to do it, these would be the people who have the ability to undertake such a project.
Thank you, Peter.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts.
Aye.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich.
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye. Motion passes.
My next case is case 2018-45P, a zoning chapter amendment concerning air conditioner air conditioning condensers and a setback from the lot line. Also, at the December 6th meeting of the Plan Commission, we reviewed language to amend Chapter 118 of the Skokie Village Code to allow air conditioning condensers 6 feet rather than 10 feet from the lot line for detached and 2-unit multifamily residences. The petitioners presented their case, explaining that they had a second-floor addition put on their corner house and wished to add a second air conditioning unit to their lot. The only place to locate the condenser that doesn't have street frontage is in a yard that is less than 10 feet from the property line, which is inconsistent with the village code. They would like to place it somewhere safe, secure, and with easy access to service. In doing so, some research and comparisons with surrounding communities that testify that they have adopted a 5 or 6 foot setback requirement for air conditioning condensers rather. According to a submitted article, condenser units have become quieter over the last 10 years. The Plan Commission recommends that the amendment be changed, and the vote was 8 ayes and 1 member absent.
A motion on Plan Commission Case 2018-45P zoning chapter amendment regarding air conditioning condensers from lot line is in order. Trustee Ulrich, seconded by Trustee Sutker. Are there any comments or questions on air conditioning condensers? Trustee Klein.
Hi, again. We are not changing the decibel level, are we? Because when people would complain, mostly neighbors, it was always, it had to be, I believe it's no more than 55 decibels, if I remember correct?
I actually could not tell you, but
I'm guessing
I could
too.
tell you that we don't have the ability to measure it, so that would not be a standard that we would really go by. We were just relying on the distance. But, I mean, we see each time we get an application, what type of unit it is and whether it's high efficiency or not.
Oh, you know, the only concern I have, if any, is about neighbors complaining
Right.
with the noise. So historically, if the neighbor did complain, we would recommend an air deadening screen, which is very inexpensive. So is this is not changing, I assume?
No.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts.
Aye.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich.
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg. Aye. Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. The concluding item is citizen comments. Is there anybody who wishes to address the village board? If not, I would like to make one brief comment and congratulate and give Jason Wisha our best wishes for he, Jessica, Natalie, and Owen. As some of you may be aware, this is Jason's last village board meeting. He will subsequently be spending his Mondays in Lake Forest at their board meeting, so he won't be here for citizen comments.
You never know.
You never know. The only comment I have is, over the past nearly 5 years, every morning around 9 o'clock or so, Jason and I have convened a managers meeting for the Detroit Tigers. If only they had taken our advice on trades, signing free agents, and making promotions from the minors, undoubtedly we would have won the World Series at least 4 of the 5 times. So we will now do this by teleconference. But Jason, congratulations.
Thank you.
Lake Forest is lucky, and you'll do a great job for them. And thank you for the time you gave us. And you can ask him if that's a beard or not.
Not yet.
Not yet. Trustee Roberts, it's your
first meeting of the year. It's my motion to adjourn.
Happy New Year, everybody.